Hi, my friend, and welcome to the Good Girl Syndrome show. This is the 12th episode ever. I just recorded the 11th one right before this one. I did both of them the same time at the same time. And so today we are going to talk about the like goal setting and setting intentions for the new year for 2026. And I'm going to share with you you know, what my goal setting practice has been this year and what I'm going through, but also what I'm stepping into for 2026 and what I'm deeply desiring, what I'm letting go of. Like, I'm going to share all of these different things with you. Um, if you haven't seen it yet, you should go and check out the previous episode, episode number 11, of the Good Girl Syndrome show, where I'm talking to Martine, right? Martine has given me, had given me a question around intention setting and goal setting, for her in her own life, where she felt like she was always failing. Like, the context was in 2025, just like many of the years before, she had set ambitious goals for herself and she had not reached them, right, by the end of the year. And it was constantly making her feel like a failure, right? And so she asked me a few questions on how she could change that for the new year to come. So if you're interested in that, go check that out. And today I'm going to talk about what I'm doing this year. Um, by the way, if you do not know me and you're new to this channel, welcome. Hi, it's good to see you. My name is Julie Vander Meulen or Julie Vander Meulen, depending on where you are in the world and how you like to pronounce my name. I'm an empowerment coach for high achieving women. And about 2 years ago, I created this concept called Good Girl Syndrome. The concept existed, a psychologist had created it, but I developed a whole theory and framework around it. And I help a few hundred women every single year around, to like let go of these patterns. Um, yeah, through my coaching, through all of my content that I create every single week for free. And I launched recently, about a month ago, I launched this Good Girl Syndrome show where I answer your questions and then I talk about how I apply it into my life. So if you're enjoying this, if you're new, hi, welcome. Please subscribe so that you can come back. And if you've seen this before or you're enjoying this episode, please put a thumbs up so that I know you've seen it. Please encourage me, put something in the comments, say hi, say hello, say who you are, just so that I know you exist and I can do some back and forth with you. It means the world to me to see you here and to be receiving your messages elsewhere as well. If you do not like to send messages publicly, I love them anywhere they come. And of course, if you feel called, you have your own questions that you would like for me to answer here, whether you would like for me to say your name or you would like to remain anonymous, you can do both. Um, you can go and find the Google form that I have in the description box below. And there's a link to it. And over there, you can ask me any question, any issue you have, and I will be sure to pick it for in the next few weeks for another one of the episodes. So, with that said, let's start with this episode. So, today, it's going to be a bit personal because I don't really have a plan for it. I just wrote down a few questions of like basically the questions I ask myself when I am about to do my whole, intention setting, goal setting practice for the year. Let me see if I can find. Oh, I forgot it over there. Okay, we will do it without it because I have a whole poster. Some of my clients have seen it. I have a very messy poster that I do every single year. It's based on the Tony Robbins teachings. He does an event called Date with Destiny every year in December. And it's it's a very, very long event and very intense event. You spend either 6 or 8 days, depending on what type of program you take, within that. And all you do is like do a deep dive into all the aspects of your life and all the aspects of how you feel about your life, right? Every single area and you kind of like see what's working for you or not. And you revise every single thing for 6 to 8 days. Out of there, you get out with a poster that you create yourself with like what are the virtues you want to have, what are the values you want to have. Do you have a mission statement for your life, right? all these different beautiful things. Like, do you have an identity for this new version of yourself that is stepping into the new year? Like all these different things. So I created that about a month ago. Um, but I'm gonna, unpack some of the things that helped me make that decision of like who I wanted to be and what my year is gonna be about. So, um, let's start with the first thing that I was thinking is how am I leading myself this year? Like basically, who is it that I want to become? So for me, 2025 was a very interesting year. It was both a year of big expansion. I did a lot of new things that were very uncomfortable for me. So as a person, you see me probably, I don't know where you met me and how you came here, but you probably saw me in some way being visible. So either you saw me in Brains magazine articles, right? Where it's me giving an expert opinion basically on good girl syndrome. You might have seen me on social media, especially on LinkedIn, where I have quite a bit of a community. I think to this day now, where I'm at about 12K, 12K followers, something like that. So it's, to me, at least to my level right now, it feels like a lot of people are following me and reading what I'm doing and sending me messages, which I'm grateful for. But um, if you think about it, about a year and a half ago, I had 180 people there, right? So that's a big growth for me and for my standards of before that being a very reserved and very it's not just shy, but a very private person in general. And so, in general, before this whole journey of good girl syndrome and creating my own personal brand, basically, I was never talking about my feelings and what was going on for me and all these different things. And so, in the process of that, I've created a whole community out there. I'm reaching more and more and more women every single week. Which is a blessing, but it's caused a lot of expansion for me, expansion that I've wanted. Expansion in terms of my reach, but also expansion in terms of my being, because what I'm capable of doing nowadays compared to a year ago is radically different because of some of the choices I made and some of the actions that I took. And so I think it was only 4 months ago that I started posting regularly on social media. I post 3 times a week. If you're interested, please go check my links. They're all in the description box as well. Um, and I'm constantly doing more. So I'm increasing it little by little, right? I start with what feels feasible in the beginning, and then I improve from there, right? And so none of it is perfect or is fantastic and so on and so forth. But what it is it is honest and it is exactly where I am at the moment and the thoughts that I have. And I try to make it as useful as I can for you, anything that I create. And I try to keep it free as well, which is important to me and to my values. And so much, much, much expansion in many ways, right? Um, and at the same time, I was at a crossroad when I began last year because I had noticed, I mean, it was hard not to notice, but I had noticed that every single year, actually multiple times a year, before last year, I would always have like crashes. And I had gone through burnout quite a few times in my life before all of this. And so I knew that that was a recurring pattern for me, that I always exhaust myself because I do all these different things. I'm very ambitious and I have a tendency to set goals that are extremely ambitious and that I do not have, the time or the skills or the leverage to be able to pull that off in the time frame that I give myself. This is my tendency. I was talking about that to Martine, that some of us have the tendency to overdo it. And that's a good thing to know about yourself, not to judge it, but just to know that like, okay, so if I have this tendency, perhaps if I want to be more gentle to myself, right? Then perhaps instead of being the type of person who pushes their goals even more, perhaps I can just take a step back, come back to them when I'm more tired or I'm in a different energy, like more peaceful, more calm, whatever it is, right? More grounded, and look at my goals and how do they feel? Do they still feel good or not, right? And if you're the opposite of me and you have a tendency to underestimate yourself and your capacities and you have a tendency to stay small, I would recommend the opposite. That like, okay, so you set those goals because your usual energy is to be grounded, which is beautiful, but it means also that sometimes then you will not be pushing yourself, right? And so perhaps that's what you really want, that like a little bit of a push, not changing your whole energy, but like when in a state, in a moment when you feel excited, go back to your grounded goals and see if there's not a little bit of a push that you want to add, like a little bit of an edge, right? So that you can still stretch yourself a little bit and become who you really want to be, by the end of the next year. So I have been learning over the past few years to take better and better and better care of myself. And it so happened that last year, about a year ago, I met my beautiful boyfriend, who is now my fiance. And I he used to be a pro golfer. So he's all about health, right? And he's very, very health oriented and like, yeah, very, very knowledgeable and wise around all these types of topics. And he's also a very loving and compassionate human being. So when you put me and him in a room, right? I'm the excited, fiery one. He's the grounded, you know, wise type of person, right? And not that I'm not wise or not that he can be fiery, but these are the types of energies that we have. And what's been wonderful about that for me is that he has brought to my attention many different things just by his mere presence. Not because of things he said that I should change or stuff like that, but just because of who he is and how he behaves and how he views life and some of the decisions that he makes. Just like I have had, another type of effect on him, right? And so it's made me realize that I actually didn't want to be in a go, go, go mode all the time, that I didn't want to be stretching myself every single second of every single day, right? He's made me realize that actually I was so tired. That like if I allowed myself to really rest and really sleep, I was afraid because I was thinking, how long is this gonna take? I'm so tired that I'm wondering like if I let go of this control and I am not in this excited energy, what happens with me? Am I still gonna be able to do the things that I want to do? And so it's been a really beautiful year, a very healing year, but also a very confronting year in many ways because I was learning to allow myself to not have as much control, you know, over what I think I should be doing, even when it's my own desires, right? Because I would say, good girls, usually when you come to me in the beginning, it's because you're trying to reconnect with your needs and with your desires. And, I give you the permission, basically, I'm like the helper who gives you permission to say, hey, why don't you do the things you want to do, that type of thing, which is very useful. However, with every level of growth, there's always new things that you learn and new, like deeper roots that you find to your patterns. And it was the case for me as well to see that, okay, so now I'm going for my desires and I'm living the life that I want. It doesn't mean that with it, I haven't taken some of the patterns that are not so constructive anymore. One of them was that I was exhausting myself and always pushing, pushing, pushing. I had that push energy and I could not see it because I'm more of a bubbly and excited person. So it feels good in the moment. And especially to other people, it looks like it's like inspiring. I give a lot of energy to people. They enjoy it. And like I give that fire, to most of the people who are around me. I tend to be cheerful and all that. But then for me, I could feel that like, whew, like at the end of the day, I'm really tired. Or like it was very normal for me every single morning to wake up to be very, very tired and have a hard time doing things, right? And so I've been on this whole journey of like improving my health and learning to rest, right? And like taking some pauses. And what if I try to be more intuitive with the work that I do and how I do it and stuff like that? One of the things that you can see is, for example, today I'm going to be posting both of my episodes on the same day, which is something you would never have seen me do a few years from now, because I would have felt like I had an obligation to like post these two things at a specific time. Whereas this time I was like, you know what? It was New Year's, it was New Year's Eve, and I was enjoying my life and I was taking a little bit of a rest. And I think people, my audience of 20 people, will survive if my episode, both of my episodes come out on the same day. They will survive, right? Which is, it sounds silly, but it's something I would never have allowed myself to do in the past, right? So that's how my year has been, right? And so who I want to become in this new year was for me that I wanted to reconcile to these two parts of myself, the more intuitive and grounded and like, if not slow, like more flowy type of version of myself that I can be and I've really embodied many, many times all throughout this year, 2025, with the extremely ambitious, very fiery, very excited version of me. And in 2025, while I was exploring both, there was also quite a bit of suffering from going, like, between going from one to the other and not knowing which one I should choose, right? And then for the past 2 months, so the last 2 months of the year, was me really like unpacking that and thinking, actually, that's a limiting belief, Julie. Like that's a thought. Like you think that those two things are incompatible. And perhaps you have not seen an example of that before, but perhaps it can exist. And so I've been consciously creating and looking for examples of people and ways of being where I can be both of these things at the same time, and where there is no conflict between these two parts of me, the overachiever and the very intuitive, flowy part of me, and somehow creating a new belief that this flowy part of me, right, is fully capable. Like me, I can trust myself even more deeply that this part of me, all of me basically, can achieve these super high goals from a completely different point of view, which meant that instead of having 36 goals, yes, 36 goals is what I used to have before. I had 12 categories of my in my life, right? That's how I would establish it. Very, very organized, right? Very go, go, go. Um, so 12 categories for my life that I wanted to improve on from 2024 to 2025. And in them, I had three sub goals, right? Because one was not enough per category. I needed three. So just so that I didn't limit myself, which meant you can imagine, you can see how me having this new intention of, not just being ambitious, but also being flowy when I had nothing but like structure of my 36 goals was quite a challenge for me to adapt to, right? Um, and so in this new year, and actually the last few months, I stopped having goals. So by that, I don't mean that I didn't want to do things anymore, but I was playing around with what if I just had an intention? Like, what if I had like broader goals that are more about who I want to be and like the energy I want to embody? And what if I trusted myself so fully that I believe that from those spaces of being, I could create whatever needs to be done. So instead of having, if I repeat it, just because sometimes I can be quick or I can be chaotic and it's hard for other people to understand me, what I'm saying here is instead of having hard set goals, I had 36, it so happens to be, but you could just have five, doesn't matter. Instead of having hard set goals for what I want to accomplish by the end of the year and putting pressure on myself, how about I tricked my own system and I know what I want to be doing, right? But how about I focus on who I want it to be instead, right? And set an intention for who I want to be and make sure that who I want to be, like if I become this version of me, like I will receive the character traits needed to create like the ripple effect by default will be that I will achieve those things. So if I give an example, I was actually giving an example of that to Martine quite different moments in a previous video. But the idea could be that instead of saying I want to achieve that, I think that's exactly what I just gave to Martine. So instead of saying, I have these five different goals and five different areas of my life, and this is what I want to achieve, I can see that the reason why I have not achieved those five goals until now, right, is because I can see that there's a character trait that I'm missing, which is I'm inventing. This is not the truth for me right now. This is not what I'm missing, but I'll go with it. I'm missing consistency, right? I could be, it used to be my case actually a few years ago. So I was quite the starter. I have a lot of energy that like makes me a fantastic starter, but not a fantastic finisher, right? To begin with, I was not a good finisher. I was losing my interest in my spark. I love things that are very exciting and give me a rush of energy, right? And so if I were to identify that like the secret success to me achieving these five goals would actually for me to become someone who loves finishing things, right? Who like really enjoys the process of like going through all the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of like a process or a project, right? Or relationship or whatever it is. And that if I became that person who loves closing things, right? Finishing them beautifully, then this would mean that I'm someone who can, by default, if I start any of those things, I will finish them. You see how that works? So it's like setting an intention for who I want to be. And it's so gentle. Like how it feels inside of me is so gentle. And what I will need to do in order to become that person is I can create a little list of like, if I were someone who's consistent, what would be my beliefs? So, what would be my thoughts? What types of actions? I can have a list of that, right? Like a menu. I don't have to do all the things, but a menu of what I can choose from. And then just simply seeing this, like every single day, having that, like on a little, what's the name of that? Like a sticky note, that I can have here, or an audio that I listen to, whatever it is, something that reminds me of what my intention is. And if I see it every single day, then the likelihood that I will choose that, my intention, right? The specific energy or the specific trait or the specific thought, right, is much, much more increased next time that I happen to be starting something or I'm in the middle of something and I'm like, oh, this isn't giving me the energy that I want. I'm bored, whatever it is. I'll see that and I'll be like, this is who I want to be, though. So, how do I embody that? And from there, I can go. So, for me, who I want to become in this new year is this version of me who can hold both beautifully. That, like, I am an entirely flowy human being, an intuitive person, right? And someone who lives her whole life through her intuition, right? And believes that from doing that, she, without a doubt, will achieve even more than what she was ever capable of achieving before when she was in a push-push energy. So that's my overall intention for this year, right? And as a result of that, for me to be in my intuitive, in an intuitive state, there's other priorities that have come up for me, right? I'm in this wonderful relationship, I want to move in with this person. I want to build a life, a home with this person, right? And so I'm, in love. I'm in like all these beautiful, exciting, but also there's a gentleness to all of that, right? Love has a specific way of making us feel. And so I'm bringing that, like my intention matches that as well. That like then, you know, me being this go, go, go person does not match as well with me having a relationship and building a home and making all those decisions and spending more time with my partner and all these different things. Something needs to shift. A year ago, right, if you remember, I would have had a conflict. I'd be like, do I do this or do I do that? Like, and I would go from one to the other, not really knowing who I am anymore between those two things. Today, my intention is that from this flowy state, I know exactly when to do what. And I can trust myself that like the right version of me, the right aspect of me is going to come through when I need it, right? So if I do need a push of go, 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 it's there. I've practiced it for 34 years. I think it's there. It is safe to say that it's there. So that's who I want to become. Um, in terms of what I'm choosing differently this year, so the big thing for me is I'm choosing differently this go, go, go. I do not want to be in a push energy. This is something that I do not want to do anymore. So that's out. That's like in my away values. In my poster, I have a place where I have my away values, the things that I don't want to go towards. I really want to remove from my life is that specific thing of like being in a go, 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 more masculine type of energy, right? If you look at the archetypes. And I want to step into a pull energy. So what I was saying, the intuition, something more feminine, something that comes more from there, something that feels more like love than it does like obligation, right? Not just in terms of how I choose things, but also the energy that I bring to the table. So that's something that I'm choosing differently this year. Other thing I'm choosing differently is what I said about intentions, right? I'm setting intentions. I'm not setting goals in the same way. I've also let go of my 36 goals, right? Which was a big thing when I first started. It just didn't feel right anymore. I loved it before, and now I was like, yeah, I don't need that anymore. So now I have just 4 goals, and they're very abstract. So in the sense that, I mean, they are and they are and they aren't. In the sense that, for example, I wanted to be engaged, right, with the love of my life. That was one of the goals. It happened sooner than, I had already written the poster for 2026. So I'm very lucky that this happened. But part of it was like to be engaged and to make him my number one priority, right? Which is not something that you can I can't go by the end of the year and be like, how many times, I can't be calculating things in a very rational way. But it feels like that to me, that like every single day, if I look at my poster in the morning, then I'm like, you know what? It inspires me without forcing me. It inspires me to reach out, to write this extra little text, to say something extra nice, to do, to do something special for him. In that, this is how like it makes me feel. For my financial goals, because that's one of my biggest things for this year, um, is I really want to increase my finances. So not just how much I make, but I also want to, I have learned so much about wealth building in the past few years that I feel it is time that I actually apply it. And so, there's traditional ways of doing things where you have a savings plan, a retirement plan, like all these different things, which are interesting. But I'm also interested in investing, in different things that you can create to have a legacy for yourself and for your children. So this is what I'm looking into right now. And so my intention is not that I will make a specific amount of money by the end of the year. I removed that. This is how I used to be before. I know more or less how much I want to make, right? But I don't need it written down. Like my rational mind has been again here with me for the past 34 years. It's there, right? I don't need to practice that. So what I put instead is to be and feel rich, right? And then I put some specific things of what that means for me. For me, that means that if I were to live in the US full time, right? Um, because I travel between those two countries. If I were to live an American lifestyle, would I be able to afford not just to live there, like survive there, but would I be able to live there abundantly and have some extra for my saving and investing and so on and so forth, and for some fun as well, right? That's what it means to me. And so it's way more abstract, right, than it used to be. Um, Something else that I'm choosing to do differently this year, let me think. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Like those things kind of sum up those different things. Um, is there something that I want less of? I put these little questions so that because these are the types of prompts that I ask myself in this order. Perhaps I can tell you so that if you're interested, you can have them in your own, in your own pocket for when you're doing this for yourself. So my first one is like, who do I want to become? Is a starting point for me because then it gives me a perspective of who I used to be and who I want to become, right? Then from there, I'm like, what am I choosing differently this year? So to go from that old version of me to this new version of me, what needs to be different, right? Is the second one. The third one is then, what do I want less of? And then the fourth one would be, what do I want more of? Just in case something else emerges as I'm speaking or writing. And then the last thing is like, what am I scared of? Like in this new vision, what is it that I'm scared of? Just so that instead of having to live through it day by day as I'm going through this new version of me and having all the push and pull, I can already like perceive it and I can already address it, right? And I can already make an intention about those things as well if they come up. So, what do I want more of or less of? Let's start with less of. I want I want more money and I want less work and I would love less stress, right? And so when I say that I want less work, I don't mean that I want to be doing less. I mean that I want to be doing more of the things that I really, really love and to really adjust how I'm spending my time. To also be doing less, actually. I also want to be spending less hours on work, which I have already transitioned into. So that's pretty cool. I just want to continue that, right? What I've done for the past few months. But I also want to feel less like I'm working at times, right? Because sometimes when I'm cramming things, right, it starts to feel like work and I start to do it like, and I would love to have less of that, the sensation of work. And I would love to have way more a sensation of play. I already have a lot of that in my life, but I want even more fun, even more play, and I want more than anything, I want joy, right? I want more joy in my life. And so I'm a firm believer, I have a bias, right? Because I'm a personal development junkie. I have a bias towards, focusing on what I can control. And I'm a big believer that a lot of my joy is within my own control. So if I focus on joy, and I focus on, you know, how I can bring more joy in myself or into a situation or something like that, that I can actually do that. So that's one of the things that I want more of. I want more joy and I want to bring it everywhere I go. And believe it or not, there is space for joy. It doesn't matter the circumstance, right? Because even if the circumstances are, you know, not the best, or you're grieving, or whatever it is, there is joy to be found in some of the things, in the sense that it's a bit like gratitude in a way, but it's like I can feel joy at the sense that, you know, if someone I love has passed away while I'm grieving and I'm very sad, and there's a lot of, in my mental landscape at the moment, that's the primary thing that comes is sadness. It can also coexist with other emotions. I can feel love for the person who's departed, right? But I can also feel joy at the different tasks that I have to do or that I want to do in memory of this person, right? Um, I can find joy in that, in looking at the pictures, in like, whatever, however it is that you do. There's a possibility, even in the most dire of circumstances, to find like beautiful emotions that you want to integrate into that. Not to pretend like everything is okay and to say that, I'm, numbing my pain and numbing, not in that way, but in a way to say that, to not cut yourself from all that you are just because you are going through a difficult period of your life, that you can still um, inject some joy in yourself and in your life. It is allowed and it's actually recommended, right? Especially in those difficult moments. So I want more of joy, and I want more of like these beautiful emotions of like being really happy to be alive. Like I really want to really appreciate what a blessing it is to be alive and to be fully alive. By fully alive, I mean my clients will know this. It's not just to be alive and survive. It's just to feel like you're very lucky to be alive. And that's what I want. I want to feel lucky in my life. I want even more of that. Um, the last thing would be, what am I scared of for this year? Um, I mean, if I allow myself to be scared, right? If I'm not in the excited things, then it's worth, noting them. Then what I'm scared of is that what if my plan doesn't work? What if the things that I desire, what if it's not possible, right? What if you know, I'm setting a path for myself that is so uncharted in my environment that, it's not actually true. It's not possible to be, this very intuitive person and to make the amount of money that I want to make, or to be this intuitive person and to create a movement as I want to make. What if it's not possible? Like, what if it's just, if other people are right, and that I need a push, push, push energy when that's something that I really do not want to have right now. So that can make me feel scared at times that perhaps I'm going in the wrong direction, that like, I'm setting sail towards the unknown here, and there's no way to tell if it's the right path or not, except for my own intuition, right? That tells me that this is the path for me to go towards. And also, like I found models in the meantime of people who are already doing a version of that in their own lives. And so now I'm trying to apply that to my own life and see how it works. But these are the types of fears that I have, is that sometimes, because I tend to do things in a way that is way different from the environment that I grew up in, but also from most people. I tend to chart my own path, which I have quite a rebellious spirit. So to a certain extent, I'm okay with it. But sometimes I still feel scared, like when things are not coming true as fast as I would like, or I don't have proof enough that the things I'm doing are working or that I'm on the right track. Then I can feel scared that perhaps I was in the wrong, and that society or like other people are in the right, and that perhaps I shouldn't have taken that path. So I think this year again, if I allow it, but I won't, right? But I know that it's there, that like I will be scared at times. I can expect myself, and that's the value of seeing it. I can expect myself in moments of discouragement, or in moments where people are being critical of me and stuff like that, that these types of fears will come up of like, am I doing the right choice? How do I justify it? Logically, I can't, right? How do I do all of these things? And I can just choose again, and to say that I do not know, right? Like the real truth inside of me is that I do not know if like this path that I'm creating really exists for me, because I've never done this before. And but I'd much, much rather try it and be fully in, like be really committed to it for a whole year and see what I learn on this path and how it changes me and what beautiful opportunities and magic is created from me setting that intention and trying something new, right? I'm much more interested in that than in not trying or like doing the back and forth inside of me of like, should I not, right? And then staying where I am and living life how the same way that most people are living it, which is through obligations and sacrifice and whatever it is, right? Which I do not want, right? It's not what I want. So that's kind of where I am right now for 2026. I have specific goals that I could share with you, but I'm going to keep them to myself. And I'll tell you at the end of this year, what worked, what didn't work, how things have evolved for me based on that. If you have done your own goals for 2026 or your own intentions or whatever it is, I would love to hear, like, if you want to share your goals, please share them with me so that I can cheer you on, right? Um, but also, like, if you have tips on your own processes of like what you do to set your intentions, like, do you have a goal setting process? How do you do that? I'd be super interested to see any of that so that perhaps I can use some of your knowledge and your wisdom as well. So, my friend, again, I'm wishing you a very, very happy new year. All the best for this new year. All the blessings, all the love, all the magic, all the everything that your heart desires, and so, 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 so much more. Thank you again for watching. And I will see you in the next episode. See you, my friend. Bye.